In ancient Chinese and other East Asian cultures, a year was divided into 24 solar nodes, 二十四节气. This video discusses the 8th node, the second of the summer season, lesser fullness, which began May 21st and lasts until June 4th. In the world, at this time, wheat begins to grow ripe. The wheat grains growing full is why the period is called small fullness, because they're growing ripe but not yet ripe. Bitter vegetables, such as leafy greens, are already flourishing, but those that are more shade-loving and tender will have begun to die back in the strength of the summer sun. These characteristics are reflected in the further subdivision of lesser fullness into 3 distinct periods of 5 days each. In the first, bitter vegetable, which is a type of endive or green leafy plant, will flourish, or in the second, shepherd's purse, which is a cool season wild plant that pretty much globally is a volunteer, but is currently cultivated as a spring green in China. This will begin to die back. And in the third, the wheat begins to ripen. So basically, it's a summary of the seasonal impact as a whole. The ambient temperature gets noticeably hotter and more humid than in the preceding seasonal node, the beginning of summer. There are more frequent rainstorms, continuing the plum rains that began at the start of the summer season. This dampness makes it easier for things to grow moldy or mildew. Now, obviously, this depends a lot on the geography of the place you're living, but I can assure you that here in Taipei, this seasonal progression is eerily on point. In the human body, because of the increases in ambient heat and humidity, it can be hard to feel cool and refreshed. So, as with the last seasonal node, you want to take advantage of the beginning and end of the day as good times to be active and outdoors, exposed to sunlight and getting exercise, and in the hotter middle portions of the day, take better care. Everything is flourishing in the world. There's also a lot of different fruits and vegetables in season, and so there's the widest potential for gathering nutrients. So it's good to eat a diverse variety of foods to replenish your vitamins and micronutrients and prevent any long-term damage from insufficiency or dietary imbalance in other parts of the year. In places with high external humidity, rising temperatures can create imbalances in temperature regulation, and these can particularly manifest with symptoms like chest tightness, palpitations, general weakness, or lassitude. As was the case at the beginning of summer, you want to take care to, as much as is possible this day and age, cultivate joy and relaxation, avoiding strong emotions like anger, frustration, etc. And we'll go into some strategies you can use to do that in a moment. Rising external humidity can also reflect in the interior condition of the body, particularly impacting the digestive system, leading to conditions like diarrhea. So if this is the case, you want to be extra careful with the balance of your food. Now, some beneficial adjustments we can make to be in better accord with seasonal influences. As always, dietary adjustment is all about balance and moderation. It's an excellent time to add more bitter vegetables to your diet, like dark leafy greens, both because they are flourishing during this time, so it should be easy and cheap to access them in your local market or farmer's market, maybe even your garden. And also because leafy greens have a bitter taste and a cold nature, which helps clear heat and especially moderate the influence of heart fire. What is heart fire? It's something like, say, the kind of mental and physical sense of being burnt out or burnt through after long unresolved emotional stagnation, often of an external cause, but related to aspects of the world that are unfair and or things you personally can't control, and yet they drag on, assaulting your mental state on a day-to-day basis. Sounding a bit too familiar 5 months into 2025? Yet, as always, remember that every remedy I suggest, especially dietary remedies, will have its own poison if and when abused. So while bitter greens are really excellent for helping to circulate the chi and drain fire, that same cooling nature they have can harm your digestion if overconsumed. So eat them, but ideally as part of a well-balanced meal. A cold side dish prepared with staple carb like rice or noodles, and a protein of your choice, tofu, meat, eggs, or as part of a lentil soup, they can be lovely, or the Korean stew called doenjang jjigae, fermented soybean soup. And I'm happy to share my personal recipe for this. It's very easy to make. Or maybe you prefer taking your greens as part of a morning green juice or green smoothie, in which case you can still get that same effect, but maybe add some balancing ingredients like ginger, which warms in contrast to the cold nature of the greens, or half of an apple or a whole apple as a good source of fiber and a good way to protect the spleen and stomach, the main organs responsible for digestion in a Chinese medical point of view. Melons are another highly recommended food during this season. These include more local varieties like winter melon and the globally easier to find watermelon. All types of melon are good for replenishing body fluids and electrolytes. They also provide a nice sweet treat that protects the spleen and stomach without harming it through excess processed sugar. Remember that the frost or white part of watermelon, the part that's between the rind and the red flesh, is especially good for clearing heat. In terms of sleep, you once again want to continue this pattern of following the habits of the sun. In this case, going to bed late and waking up early. We're coming up on summer solstice, the longest day of the year and therefore the shortest night. So at this time, coming into this season, it's okay to get less sleep. However, if like me, you know that regardless of the season, your body needs about 8 or 9 hours just to function rather than the 5, 6, or 7 that's a bit more standard for most adults, plan your bedtime so that you can still wake up early. So go to bed around 10, wake at 6 is a nice balance, maybe an hour less, 11 to 6, because it remains very important to be up early, exercising in that still cool first or second hour of the day ahead of the harshness of the summer heat to protect against excess sweating and get some sun without the heavy solar exposure that can lead to sunburns. I thought it might be good at the end of this episode to take a minute and reflect on how consciously working with themes of the last solar node, the beginning of summer, Li Xia, personally worked for my life. I did notice, and I don't know if it was because I had them on my mind in working with it for producing these episodes, but I did notice a lot more joint pain, especially crackliness around my wrists and ankles. And so working on that practice of very early in the morning, before getting out of bed or very shortly after getting out of bed, having a glass of water and just general stretching, circulating the chi at my wrists and ankles has been really helpful. Making light little go in a couple of circles clockwise, then counterclockwise. Both of these joints has been very helpful. Doing this has also made me substantially more aware of my posture in general, which is always helpful. In terms of sleep, waking up not at sunrise but near to it has been immensely helpful, both in allowing me time with my dog to exercise in the morning ahead of the heat. Here in Taipei, it's already miserably hot and humid. Hopefully where you are, you get a bit more relief. Having time outdoors in the very early and late parts of the day has been helpful for my mental as well as physical health, and my dog has been quite happy with that new routine. Waking up for me relatively early has also been a great help in getting my day started a lot earlier. And after 4 or 5 hours of productivity, mentally it feels more comfortable for me to take a little bit of a siesta after lunch, which is something I recommended at the start of the summer season. And that's really been good for my mental clarity and overall energy throughout the day. I actually noted to myself that I only had one really major migraine day this whole solar node. And for me, that was a really big distinction. And I think better regularity in my sleeping habits and increasing my fiber intake by working in more fresh vegetables has really helped. So these are all things I have noted in trying to apply my own advice to my day-to-day life. And in the next node, I'm hoping to work a lot more consciously on kind of meal prep type things, batch cooking as a means of getting in more vegetables, but saving some money by making sure that, one, I'm eating food that I have myself cooked rather than going and getting takeaway, which is a little bit too cheap and convenient in Taiwan. Delicious, but not necessarily the healthiest, especially if you're craving things like fresh bitter greens and salad, which are a little bit harder to find actually than kind of meat and rice type dishes. And what else? There's something else I was gonna say, but I'm gonna edit it in later. Okay. I hope that some of this advice has been helpful for you. Take it or leave it as it works for you. And as always, if you have questions, please leave a comment in the chat and I'm happy to hear it. All right. Thanks so much. And peace. 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 That's so awkward.